Hello, everybody. This is Ashish Poddar. I am one of the student of VG Learning, and in fact, I am one of the student of Vinod Gupta ji for last 20 years. So, from that perspective, it's a long association, and I believe that this is going to be a very interactive session. And recently, because I cleared BEC with 91 marks, so I believe that it will be really nice to share some of the tips or some of the things which I did, which probably will also help you once you will also be preparing for your exams and then going ahead. So it's a very informal meeting, and then you can actually, go ahead and start asking your questions and then concerns. I will actually keep it very interactive. So I will leave up to you, and then you can start asking any of the questions, concerns, or doubts you may have. So I can see there are almost around 22 participants. So anybody can take the lead. I can see one of yeah. So I can see one of the question. What is your study schedule? And Akanksha is saying that they cannot hear me. So I would like to ask everybody if they can hear me or not. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So Akanksha, probably you may have to check if your audio settings are correctly been done or not. So, because most of the participants are able to hear me. So so guys, I'm actually starting with one first question, which is what was my study schedule. So I just want to share with you that I believe that at least 180 hours to 200 hours are definitely required, specifically for BEC if I talk about. So from that perspective, I work backward. Once I get to know about this fact that at least 180 to 200 hours are required, I actually divided this um, over the primarily over the weekend when I was actually attending these classes from Vgld, and also during the weekdays I was making sure that at least 2 to 3 hours I should be able to take out some time. I just want to share with you that I have been working as a global chief financial officer for a US software development company, and because of that reason also it was really hard to take out time on weekdays. But still, I made it a point that I have to study at least 2 to 3 hours daily in order to make sure that I should be able to complete course. And as some of the coaches here in VG Learning guided me that at least you should be completing your course at least 2 or 3 times. You need to revise that, and that's what I followed. I actually revised my course for around 3 times before going for exam. So the next question which I get is from Abhishek. He's saying that he is also full-time working and really find difficult time to get difficult in terms of finding tough to get time for studies. So Abhishek, I totally agree with you, but nevertheless I believe that CPA is a kind of a designation which we all are looking to have behind our names, and from that perspective we need to motivate ourselves, and we need to make sure that at least 2 to 3 hours of studies we should be able to do on a daily basis. That will actually help us in terms of retaining some of the material and grasping that material in a much more easier way as compared to, let's say, if we will be doing only on a weekly basis. So any other questions, guys? So yeah, so one of the questions is what should we do during the last week of exam date? So it's a very important question. Why? Because the last week actually makes or breaks the situation. Let me be very honest with you. And that last week is very important, because in that week we should make sure that we should be able to go through whole of the material. And let's say if we have 6 units, or if we have 6 units, then probably we should try to devote at least half a day to each unit, and try to make sure that we should be able to complete all those units in first 3 to 4 days. And then we should be concentrating primarily on the MCQs and sims in last 2 to 3 days. Still, I would say that on the last day before the exam, please keep yourself kind of tension free. You should not be actually doing too much of hard questions on that day. the most important thing on that day is to go through your formulas, specifically for BEC. When we talk about BEC, I think we should definitely go through our formulas and the notes which we may have prepared during the process. So I definitely guide everybody that we should be preparing our notes after every chapter, and then we can actually go ahead and work with those notes towards the end of our revision. One of the question from Abhishek is that he is preparing for FAR and regulation as well, and should he go ahead for exam or should wait for other papers to complete? So again, it's a personal choice, but in my opinion, I believe, in my opinion, because we do not get much of time, we are full-time professionals. Most of us are full-time professionals. So, and then the stakes are high from the point of view of the course fees and the examination fees and the prometric fees. So from that perspective, I believe that it is better to kind of, schedule one by one. That's what I have been doing. And then from that perspective, I think it's a fair strategy to go at around one or two subjects at the most at one point in time. Ayush has a question, I believe. So Ayush was asking about, sorry, one second. Yeah, so Ayush was talking about, because I lost that question right now. One second, I'm just looking upon that. Yeah, mock test. Yeah, so Ayush, I'm not sure if you have been able to go through the Becker study material, but Becker study material is very comprehensive. That actually comprises of MCQs, simulations, and also your mock tests. There are 3 mock tests which are there in Becker BEC material, course material, and then from that perspective, those are sufficient enough. But I would definitely guide you or kind of share with you that those should be attempted once you have already completed whole course. Do not attempt it before completing whole course. Why? Because otherwise the questions will not remain unique to you, and then it will not be a real test of your knowledge. So from that perspective, try to do those try to do those mock tests only after completing your course. That will be much more helpful. I actually planned it in such a way that I did those 3 mock tests in last 3 weeks of before my exam. So every week I was trying one mock test and making sure that whatever the mistakes and other things I was doing, I should be able to work on those in the next week, and then to see how I am performing on the next mock test. Yes. So one of the questions, sorry, I'm not able to see the name of that person, but one of the questions is that reading modules again and again, will that make sense, or practicing MCQs and sims will make sense? See, material. So I would like to reiterate whatever I listened from most of my coaches from VG Learning, is that book is our Bible, and from that perspective, it is always better to go through your book again and again. Sims, definitely sims, and your MCQs, those are something which once you will do, probably you will start remembering the answers or the way or the pattern, the pattern of the sim or the way those have been put up over there. So once you will be able to complete one time, second time or third time, it will be much more easier for you to do or attempt same sims and MCQs. So what I did is that I actually completed the book, and I also did a fair bit of MCQs and sims at the end of each chapter. But I continued on my journey by revising the concepts of last chapter whenever I was moving to the next chapter. So once I was starting my next chapter, I always made sure to go through my notes for the first chapter in order to make sure that I should be able to grasp and retain that for a longer period of time. So we need to create loops, and that's what I think works very well. So Abhishek, I have not cleared all the papers. I have not yet attempted. I am going to attempt very soon. One of them audit in next 2 to 3 months. Because of my workload, I have not been able to devote that much of time. And in the past, because of COVID, there were lots of COVID cases in my family as well. Because of that reason, I was not able to take up in the past. Baker book and Baker lectures are sufficient enough for the preparation as per my understanding and my experience. I believe that the questions or the exam is not so difficult. If you know all the concepts, then it is not so difficult. It's only the time management which is the most important thing during the exam. Those 4.5 hours of time management is something which is the key to success. Yeah, so Sugandh has asked that should we go ahead for one exam or prepare all the subjects, and I already answered that, but I'm again answering that because probably Sugandh may not have joined at that time. So as I suggested earlier, if we are working professionals and we do not find sufficient time, then in that scenario we should actually go ahead one by one, at the most two subjects at the same time, if that allows, if our bandwidth allows that. Otherwise, I would suggest, I would recommend that one by one will definitely help you ensuring that you clear that exam. And also from cost perspective also, it will be better if we go one by one. Again, due to COVID also, I actually wanted to go ahead for two exams, but because of COVID, the center was actually being shut down for some time, and then it actually derails your process and then your planning for the same. So from that perspective also, I believe that if you are doing one or two exams, then you can easily reschedule those ones. Otherwise it will be very difficult if you are actually having enrolled for 4 exams, you have NTS issued for 4 exams, and then to reschedule those 4 exams during the same window of 6 months, it might be very, very challenging. Arvind has been asking that how many hours do you suggest we should study while studying, taking classes, and how many days leave we should take before exams. So again, in total, as we all know that it is around 180 to 240 hours of time which we need to devote to this exam. So from that perspective, you can working backwards. And in my case, I made sure that at least 6 to 8 weeks I went through the material, and then those 6 to 8 weeks I made sure that in 4 to 5 weeks I should be able to close all the topics in the material, and then next 2 to 3 weeks I made sure that I should continue to practice those ones, revise those ones, and then I took one or two more additional weeks after that in order to make sure that I should be able to kind of take up all the kinds of questions during the exam. So on a daily basis, as I already mentioned earlier, it's roughly around 2 to 3 hours which I devoted, and over the weekend definitely I slogged like anything. And over the weekends we were having at least 6-hour classes on Saturday, Sunday. And in addition to that, I used to study for almost around 10 to 12 hours per day, and that actually help you to cover up whatever you have done during the classes as well as in last 1 week. Kiran's question is, how did you plan your time in the examination? Yes, so this is a very important question because uh, time planning is one of the most important things. All the questions in the exam you will be knowing, that's for sure, because you must have gone through your classes, you must have gone through the material. So that's for sure that you will be knowing all the questions. But the only challenge is that how to attempt all those questions during those 4.5 hours. So from that perspective, I have 2-3 tips which are very important, which I would like to share. And one of them is that MCQs. You will receive 2 testlets of MCQs, and try to make sure that uh, you should be able to close those MCQ testlets in less than an hour. If you will be able to achieve that, then you will be having sufficient time to go through simulations and your task simulations and your writing skills and your written communication. So from that perspective, I just want to tell you that for MCQs I made sure that I should be working on the calculator rather than on the Excel. But for simulations I made sure that I should be using the Excel. Those two things I made, I practiced a lot even before my exam, and I made sure that the long questions which have certain repeated calculations that should definitely be done on Excel, whereas the small questions I normally do on paper and plus on calculator. So that actually helps you to kind of gain time in an MCQ section, and that time you can utilize towards simulations and written communication. In simulations, definitely I actually got lots of simulations which were having lots of exhibits, and that actually creates a lot of trouble. But if you actually go through in detail and also with full concentration, you will find that one exhibit was actually utilized only at once. That is also one of my experience, that in the exhibit the information which has been given, that will be utilized only towards one question. This is not a kind of a standard rule, but this is what I have seen in most of these simulations, whether in the past released AICPA simulations or in Becker material or in actual exam. So Parul, yes, Parul's question is that is it mandatory to use Excel? No, it is not mandatory to use Excel, but certainly if you have good command on Excel, then simulations will be something which you will be able to do very fast. And simulations are most of the time, running into 5 or 6 or 8 exhibits. And in that scenario, copy pasting material from simulation exhibits to Excel is easy, and there you can do quick calculations. If you will start doing it on your calculator, probably you will definitely miss any of the calculations, or the formulas, or something will get missed. Let me be very honest with you. During my exam, when the simulations start, when I started attempting the simulations, the first simulation I did on calculator on paper, and it was too time consuming, and I decided to start using Excel from the next simulation, and then that actually helped me in terms of gaining back the time. Otherwise, my first simulation, it actually took me almost 40 minutes, and then I was rushing towards other simulations. Then I started using Excel. Yeah, so written, that's right, that the written communication definitely required some good time. I was short of time, and I believe that if I have lose any points, or if I have not been able to score much more than 91, then that will be because of written communication. Because in the written communication, I was left with only 45 minutes and just 15 minutes for each of them. And because of that reason, I knew the subject very well, but unfortunately I was not having time, so I had to finish it off. But I made sure to apply the formula like IEC, which was basically been explained in Becker, and also by the VG learning teachers and coaches. So I applied that formula, and made sure that it has a proper introduction, and it also has an explanation, and then a closure, proper closure. So that is something which I definitely would like to improve upon given a chance. Yeah, so in Baker Sims, the Excel which has been given there is maybe you can say that the functionalities are not even 10 or 20% of the actual Excel, but the Excel functionality which you get in the exam, it is almost around 70 to 80% similar kind of Excel. The only thing which is missing is, let's say, the formula function, which will not be there, because formula is something which you will have to remember and you will have to use yourself. You will have to write the formula there yourself. But otherwise, more or less it was in terms of copy pasting, and in terms of summation, in terms of subtraction, multiplication, and every other, all the basic functionalities are there. It's not that small layout, screen layout, which is there in the Baker simulations. It is actually a little much more bigger layout, uh, which is there in the exam. Yeah, so that actually reminds me of a very important point, which I thought that I will share with you guys, is that there we will be working on a desktop and a keyboard. And normally when we do these classes, or when we attempt these Baker questions or simulations, we actually do it on our laptop. So the laptop keyboard is little smaller as compared to the keyboard which they normally provide you. And this is something which I actually made sure even before getting into the exam. So before getting into the exam, and this is specifically for BEC, because in BEC we have to we have a writing section also, which is written communication. So this thing which I am talking about is actually applicable for BEC exam, may not be applicable for other exams. So I actually bought a keyboard, and then that keyboard I attached with my laptop in order to make sure that my speed should be almost similar when I will be actually attempting that on the desktop in the exam. So that is one thing which is a little game changer kind of a thing for me, because I was able to kind of use that keyboard and then improve my typing skills through that keyboard. Otherwise, if you will go straight away to that desktop with the keyboard, and before that if you are using the laptop, then it may impact your speed. It may impact your speed. Another thing is that the mouse, most of the people do not use mouse. They normally use the mouse pad on the laptop. So that also I started using just for the exam, because that also actually helps in terms of getting control on the mouse and then using that mouse effectively during the exam. That actually makes a lot of difference. That makes a lot of difference. And one of the question was that how many leaves I took before the exam. So I would like to tell you that it was a kind of a blessing in disguise, that because of the COVID, I got at least 1 week before the exam. And because of that reason, I was able to concentrate on the exam very well. I was able to concentrate on the revision section very well. So roughly around 1 week time is good enough if you have already finished the course and did some revision over the period. How much I score in Becker mocks? Yeah, so in Becker mocks is a kind of a bumper. You can say it's a bump. I scored in the first mock, I scored around 79 or 80. The next one I scored 86, and the last one again I scored around 81. So that was the kind. But they do not actually, they do not kind of put score to written communication. So those are not true scores from that perspective. And yeah, you should definitely attempt AICPA mock exam as well, because there are really some tough questions which they have there, and that actually channelize your thinking, that how questions can be twisted and presented in the exam. Another important thing which I would like to share, though nobody has asked so far, is about the practical nature of questions in the exam. So certainly I found some of the simulations very near to the practical situations which we deal in our day-to-day accounting, or let's say in our day-to-day office work. So somebody need to definitely understand concepts in such a thorough manner that if those things are presented, let's say in a practical situation scenario, then they should be able to attempt that. Result, normally they have, NASBA, they already have a schedule for declaring results. So let's say, I'm giving you just an example. Let's say if you have given an exam before the 15th or 13th of any month, then probably by first week of next month, you will get your results. So they already have a full schedule. You can check on their website, and you can find out when you will give exam and when the result will be out. Oh, while exiting from the exam hall, how much you expected? Yes. So frankly speaking, I was very, very confident, except for the written communication part, because I knew a lot of things about those areas based on my practical experience, but I did not find time to kind of put in over there. So that was the only one area where I was feeling little low. Otherwise, I was very, very confident that yes, I will be able to clear. I was not sure whether I will be able to cross 90. My idea was to cross 95 because there is an ALISA award. I thought that probably I will try to look for that. I work towards that. Unfortunately, I could not, and I ended up with 91. So just a few more tips which I actually noted down. Might be you guys already aware of, but still I thought that if I have been interacting with my fellow fellow aspiring CPA candidates, so I should be sharing that. So you should try to reach exam center at least 30 minutes before, because of the corona guidelines and COVID guidelines. There are so many checks and other things which are going on, and that actually requires a number of numbers of activities at your end. So from that perspective, you should arrive at least 30 minutes before your time. And sometimes if you arrive early, they also start exam early, and as per your convenience and wish. So from that perspective, it will be much more easier condition for you to go into exam, like after getting normalized in that environment, rather than immediately rushing into the exam. So that is something which you must try to do. Secondly, you must carry some eatables for your break, which will be a mandatory break of 15 minutes after 2 hours. And that is actually very much required. Why? Because after 2 hours of that grilling kind of a situation, you will feel exhausted. And from that perspective, those 15 minutes you must utilize towards refreshing yourself and making sure that you should be regaining your energy during that time, and then making sure that you should be able to take up the next testlets in a much more efficient manner. So I carried some paranthas with me, and I believe that anybody they should definitely carry some kind of eatables that actually re-energizes you. Otherwise, in the exam, while putting mask on your face and continuing for 2 hours, it's very exhaustive. So you feel very breathless, and which I felt when I actually attempted this exam during the COVID. You can say that when the COVID cases were very high at that point in time. So any other questions? So please, feel free if you have any other questions, and you guys can reach out to me directly as well. I have been available on WhatsApp and then also on call. Some of you have already reached out to me earlier, and they are in constant touch with me in terms of getting some help with respect to BEC or some other accounting area or something.
Thank you so much, Ashish. This was such an informative session, and I hope you clear your CPA exams as soon as possible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shreya. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to share my experience with all my fellow friends. And I believe that, this is a continuous journey for each one of us. And I wish everybody all the best for their exams and for their study schedules. I am available here if you guys would like to, study together, or would like to, uh, have some kind of information or some kind of guidance. So I'm always been there. Thanks. Bye. Take care.